This is Solid Snake, and you're listening to This Week in Geek with Mike the Birdman Dodd and the rest of the TWIG crew on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Who disrupts my coronation? Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
Listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, and I'm not alone as I trek through the unusualness that is the world of 2021. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, it's a little too early to tell, but I'm joined by the man in Kitchener,
Alex, the producer.
So, it has been an eventful week here at This Week in Geek, at least in terms of me personally. So we often start off every show kind of talking about what's been going on in our week. And this week has been actually pretty big in terms of what's been going on for me. If you've been following some of my socials, most notably my Twitter at BirdmanDodd, I announced earlier this week I was elected to the executive board for the Guelph NDP, which is the new Democrats party up here in Canada. And I'm working with the equity boards for people living with a disability, which I obviously am. And I'm also going to be working towards First Nations stuff too, which I did some stuff this past summer with the 60 Scoop. So I'm going to be helping people, which is pretty exciting.
So you're going to be like an advocate for issues on those topics, basically, right?
Yeah, basically like helping people. Maybe we need a new set of guidelines for certain things. Now, because of the way this particular board is set up, I'm also the federal person and the provincial person, so I've got double duty on those two boards. And I was surprised how many other
by federal, but it's federal, but it's representing your county or your riding or whatever, or your. So it wouldn't be. It's I keep thinking of it like city councilors. It's not like that. It's you're representing that region.
Yes,
for that issue.
Yeah, and then I was also selected to be a delegate, which will go to the convention in April. Now, because of COVID-19, it'll be a virtual convention this year, but I'll get to meet party leaders, MPPs, MPs, stuff like that, talk with other people from the party, try to make up policy and guidelines, what we want to do, kind of pushing forward. And my goal will be to help people out as much as I possibly can. I was actually reading on the Bernie Sanders campaign website, and it really gave me a really, really good idea. And I love his campaign slogan. And it was, I think it's not me, us, and I will fight for someone I don't know. And I kind of want to take that kind of thought process forward.
Well, and that's cool. Like, it's good to be active as much as you can in that kind of realm, because you are uniquely qualified for those two topics.
Yeah,
compared to a lot of other people. Like I can't imagine there's as many other people that are as outspoken as you are, that are as media literate as you are, and new media literate, that are both native and physically disabled in your riding.
Yeah, like it's going to be a very exciting opportunity to kind of push things forward. And I know some critics will say, well, all politicians are bad, but I say, you've got to start somewhere.
Well, it also depends. Like, not everybody has aspirations to lead a country or lead like anything. People don't realize how many positions there are within a party or within, the reason that they have somebody like you or doing this kind of position is because there are a multitude of issues that they just aren't versed on, and they'll need a voice that can represent them.
Yeah, so that's really, really, really exciting. There could be potentially some other things coming up. So with that being said, some things may change here on the show, not too dramatically. Basically, I'm going to try to be less of a jerk certain sense.
You're not a jerk. If anything, especially in the last 5 years or so, we've all grown. But one thing to consider is if you've got a party meeting when it's a time for a live recording, then that means that it's going to be a solo thing, or it comes out on a different day, or whatever works. So
yeah, so hopefully people just understand. I am doing my very best.
I'm sorry, federal government party. I cannot attend your fun little shindig because I have to talk about stupid shit with my friend Alex.
Exactly. I'm sorry, Yagmeet Singh. I have to talk about Batman today. I'm sure you understand.
But the problem is, if you say that to him, he might show up.
Wouldn't that be fun?
But yeah, like, think about this, Michael. This will be your first convention since the last time we went, like 2 years ago. And was it 2 years ago now? Yeah, 2 years ago we went to the one in Guelph, and then I went to the one in the fall of that year.
Yeah, I go from people dressed up like Batman to people who I guess cosplay as Bruce Wayne.
If you end up physically attending a government convention eventually after COVID's over, you probably won't be taking pictures with the Thanos glove.
That's what I should bring onto the floor. All I gotta do is snap my fingers, folks.
That's how they'll take you serious, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's got the Infinity Stones. Whatever do we do? But yeah, so hopefully, folks, you won't notice too many kind of changes around here. We are kind of tooling up for some things. So that being said, you will have noticed you can no longer download Cambridge Chronicles Season 1. It was a limited edition time. Too bad if you don't get it anymore. It's just the way it is. But that means something stirs in the darkness. We've been digging in the deserts of Egypt, and we found something. And by extension, so did the guy from Big Trouble in Little China. And then MacGyver found this thing. What are we talking about? That's right. Stargate TWIG. That's right. We are recording episode 0 coming up this week. We're going to be talking about what we hope to accomplish on the show, what we want our characters to do. Basically, kind of just talk about Stargate, what we want to do with this, because part of the session 0 process is kind of getting a feel for the game. And you guys know I insert a little bit of humor into my games, but not too much. And this is going to be a different experience for me because I'll be playing with Liam, who I haven't role played with since high school. He's former military. I don't want to get this wrong. And
I'm totally okay with getting it wrong.
Like I want to have an air of authenticity. So what I've been doing in preparation is Alex has very graciously loaned me some of his old Stargate discs, and he said, "Okay, Mike, here's the essential watch order. Here's what I want you to check out in terms of lore, character development, things that progress the show forward." But here's
3 years ago, we started doing a watch together, which became impossible now. But we were about 3.5 seasons in.
Yeah.
And the RPG that we'll be basing this on, it takes place halfway through the 6th season. So you're like, hey, I need a refresher for the first 3 seasons because it's been like a year since I watched. And I was like, well, here's the essential episodes that are lore based. You can fill in the rest if you feel like you want to. And then here's the rest if you want to, catch up so that you might want some future knowledge of the show beyond season 6 so that you don't accidentally, for those of us, because I think the rest of us have seen the show, at least most of it. Ken might not have seen all of it. I think he wants to watch as is, but I know
JT has, I think.
JT's seen all of it, and I'm reasonably sure. I know Liam's doing a full watch, I think he's doing a full watch on, because some of it's on Amazon, some of it's not.
Some of it's on Netflix, I think. It's
sort of all over the place. And then in your case, it's just like, here's the essential episodes. And by essential, I don't mean that, a super fan would be like, all the episodes are essential. But reality is, here's episodes that push the lore that you're going to need to know so you don't make a mistake.
Yeah, so I've already designed my own system lords. I've got ideas for planets, ideas for adventures, and we're going to plan it out. It's either going to be 8 to 12 episodes long, and an episode will be the 4-hour format that we used to use on Terrible Warriors. So 1 month is episode 1 of Stargate TWIG, then episode 2 will be next month, and so on and so forth. And we'll just kind of see where it goes. And I've also got ideas for other things we can do. I downloaded a module for Mass Effect using the D&D 5th edition rules. So that's fantastic. We also have Cyberpunk Red we could potentially kind of play through. So having an actual play podcast will be a lot of fun again.
And I forgot, like I was looking on my shelf, I've got a D20 adventure, like a open D20 adventure book. You could do it Indiana Jones style if you wanted to.
Yeah, like actually, you'd be surprised how easily Call of Cthulhu would translate to Indiana Jones.
Oh, yeah.
But Indy's not surviving combat with a great old one.
No, so like we've got those, like that's and again, scheduling wise, while it might be a month, it might be a case of where we record a whole bunch, and it might be a bi-weekly show, it might be a weekly show, but regardless, we're ramping up, and for us, I guess. If somebody wanted to get a feel, maybe they know Stargate a little bit or get a feel for what the kind of show could be like. Do you remember when we played Stargate last time? That was fun.
That was actually surprisingly fun. And then we got fucked over by, I think it was Justin or Bree fucked us over.
Well, it was planned all along with the GM, and that was part of the storyline apparently, and we got fucked.
Yeah, like they left us behind on this planet, and the Asgardians.
It is worth a listen to. Were we playing? Was it SG-12 or 15 or something?
It was SG-12 Shield of Mars, and it
so
was fun.
Yeah, that's and I know that they've reposted a lot of those. So if you wanted to give a listen to that to get a feel for not necessarily what our game is going to be exactly like, but if you want to familiarize yourself maybe with the kind of game you can play, that was based on their old D20 system, wasn't it?
I think it was Fate Core. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was Fate. Yeah, I know there was a Stargate RPG previously. I think maybe it was an amalgam of that plus Fate. Yeah, the old Stargate was based.
Has it been about 3 years almost since we did that?
At least. The old officially licensed Stargate RPG was based upon Spycraft, which is kind of like a D20 game, I think. I've got the books, but I've only ever read the kind of fluff out of them, so it's been a while.
So yeah, that might be, if you're just wondering or have a hankering for what it might be, that is one of the few games where when I was starting with TWIG and Terrible Warriors, where you got to play as a player with me.
Yeah, that's one of the few times I actually get a chance to not be rolling dice and deciding the fate of millions. I just get to be, which is fun. So I will probably be the forever DM for TWIG's actual play podcast.
Not always, but I would say at least until we're able to get things done back. Because I still got that Fate Kaiju book.
That'd be pretty cool, and especially with the trailer for Kong versus Godzilla coming out today.
Yeah, I was thinking if I start reading cover to cover and get you guys in, that maybe even me saying it here will hold me to it. But you might get to do a Power Rangers game that way.
That'd be pretty cool. I mean, what if the Power Rangers had to team up with Monarch and stop the Titans?
For the sake of copyright, you may be let me think. I guess would it be Power Rangers? What would be in
the Boom Studio comics, there is a government Power Ranger program, but they haven't launched it yet. Kind of because they have.
I'm saying, what would be a legally distinct version of Power Rangers? Would it be power? What's another word for power?
Energy, hyper.
Yeah, hyper. Yes, you'd be the energy marshals.
Actually, Hyper Marshals isn't a terrible name. We could figure this out.
Yes, for our own legally distinct, not quite Power Rangers, because aren't they working on a Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes, and that's supposed to come out this year, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
When that happens, then we can play direct.
Yeah.
But we might make our own individually distinct one until then.
So yeah, we could have that coming down the pipe. So a lot of exciting stuff to kind of talk about, but we are kind of running a little bit long here. So
you're not going to ask me how I did today?
I was
how I did this week.
I was just about to ask you. So what have you been up to this past week?
This past week it was cold. It was very cold outside. So this week was me watching as much anime as I could, just simply because there wasn't a whole lot else to do at the moment, but I was like, okay, let's see. I've been watching a lot of those, what is it, isekai they call them, where they
go to a different planet or whatever.
Yeah, and they're always stupid, and they're always written for like 12-year-old boys or 15-year-old boys. Some of them can be quite good, some of them can be bad, and I was just like, sometimes you can get decent ideas for stories out of them, even if it goes off the rails at the end. So I was watching a bunch of different anime, but I've also been playing Atelier Ryza 2, which I think my review will come out midweek or at the end of the week. That is the latest Koei Tecmo game in the long-running RPG series, and the first for PlayStation 5. I believe it's the first next-gen RPG. I mean, it's cross-gen. Yakuza Like a Dragon doesn't have its PS5 version out yet. And the Xbox Series X version kind of just plays like a last gen title would if it was optimized, because the engine's pretty rough on previous gen. So this feels a little more truly next gen, like the triggers work and all that sort of fancy junk. So I'm working my way through that, and then slowly trying to work my way through my backlog. And I've had some ideas again from watching a lot of these shows for, I got to write down little short story ideas. That, and I've been having the craziest dreams, which I won't get into here, but one of them involved like laying down in a park and using my mind to blow up Steve Bannon, and I don't know why. It was and then waking up and then finding out that like somebody else was using other people, controlling their minds to go into their dreams and then kill people in their dreams that they didn't like. So I didn't do it. Somebody else went into my dreams and did it, and then that person died. And I was like, and I woke up and I'm like, what? Yeah.
I'm never that interesting when I dream. It's always something remarkably mundane. Okay. Well,
yes.
On that note.
So yes, that and I got your gift, the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack on vinyl, which I listened to and did like a 1-to-1 backup with my record player that has the USB backup option on it. And so I've been listening to it on my PC, and I'm telling you, it sounds better in my mind with that vinyl hiss and pop and crack and that analog sound than even listening to it like through streaming or digital. Something about jazz, man.
I'm telling you, like, maybe we'll have to team up with like Ken and do an episode of this anime talking about Cowboy Bebop, because it's only 26 episodes plus one movie. And
we could even, I don't know if he wants to do the format, but we could even talk to him about just the best anime soundtracks.
Yeah, I could definitely. I mean, I've got my two picks automatically.
Yeah, I think I know exactly which ones you're talking about, but he may be able to put us on to stuff we've never even heard of.
I'd be down for that. So, Ken, if you're listening, consider this your summons. All right. So coming up on this week's show, we have a lot of things to talk about, from Batman, Mortal Kombat, Pokemon, Paramount, and James Bond. Surprisingly, we got a lot of stuff coming up. But before we do, we have a couple of reviews coming up from Alex from Peripheral Maker PDP, and I will have a special review of Aliens, Another Glorious Day in the Core from Gale Force 9 right in the middle of the show. So without any further ado, here is Alex's review of the latest cool toy from PDP. We'll be back, guys, right after this.
It's a new year, and with the Xbox Series X and S console slowly trickling back into stores, sometimes where you can just find them on the store shelves, or through batch releases on major websites that hopefully don't get picked up by bots. Some of the accessories that you might want to pick up are starting to trickle in as well. One of which was sent over by our friends at PDP Gaming, and it's an updated version of their media remote. There was an edition of this, a slightly larger one that I believe Birdman has. that was made for the last generation of consoles. And this is an updated design, sleeker, more streamlined controls. There's less buttons overall, but it seems to mimic the look and feel sort of, while keeping the same aesthetic as the Series X, as the official PlayStation Media Remote. Sort of like, because Microsoft didn't release an official one this time around, where they did way back on the launch of the original Xbox One, and then eventually discontinued that, and PDP sort of swooped in to take over by releasing their own official Media Remote. This is a lightweight version of that controller that's designed with the new series consoles in mind. You don't need a dongle or anything to plug in. It's auto paired and works because on the front of these consoles there's still the IR receiver blaster for them. So nothing to program. You pop in a couple batteries and you're good to go. It just works. Now included is full navigation, so you can navigate your menus. I'm able to navigate pretty much any app that was designed for the Xbox One or the Series X, and I'm using this mostly for when I'm watching streaming videos, as well as when I'm watching 4K UHD discs, because you don't always want to have your game controller on all times, because even with like an Elite controller where there's plenty of battery, it's kind of a waste to have the controller on when you're just navigating something, and then those controllers go to sleep and you got to power them on, wait 3 or 4 seconds so you can press a button and make it go, and then if you don't memorize necessarily what every button does for each system or each application, it can be kind of a pain. This way you've got your pause, play, fast forward, rewind, your up, down, left, right, all of the navigational buttons you'd want for just basic use. It's something, if you've had a Blu-ray player, or closest thing, like I said, would be the PlayStation 5's official media remote. It's that sort of feel. Great feature here as well is it has auto illuminating. So if you turn the remote or lift it up or pick it up, it will illuminate all the buttons. And because it's a black controller with black buttons, where all the accents and all the symbols are a sort of see-through white, with a couple color additions for the A, B, X, Y buttons, it does glow through there, and pretty much in any lighting, even pitch black room, it illuminates enough that you can see what you need to do to work with it. It's got a dedicated Xbox button so you can get to the system and shut it down, and just basically covers everything you'd need to. It's a no-frills version of that full-size remote, and I actually kind of like it better, personally. If you're somebody who wants all the extra buttons and likes a larger, full-size media remote that sort of suits more of a AV receiver console style, you can still get the PDP Gaming remote that was released previously, either on their website, or you can probably still see it on Amazon. But this media remote is, in my mind, much more sleek, compact, and up to date with what we're used to now with media players, and whether it be NVIDIA Shield TVs or what's coming with new game consoles. This is your best bet, and it retails for, a reasonable price, somewhere in the realm of $20-$25. Again, it's going to depend on your region, the store you buy it from, but it's a solidly built controller, and it's going to be better than what you see. You'll end up seeing like all these cheapy, crappy ones from China popping up on either eBay or Amazon, and they always have, abysmal reviews. This is basically the same price as those guys, but officially licensed, and it works absolutely perfect. So I do highly recommend it.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek
News.
Welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, joined with my co-host, Alex the Producer. All right, folks, well, let's break things down that happened around the planet this past week and in the world of pop culture and all things interesting, be they tech, science, or whatever. Okay, so we're going to start things off going to comicbook.com, and this first story is Batman the Animated Series sequel reportedly in the works for HBO Max. Following the announcement that Batman the Animated Series has finally shifted from the DC Universe platform and onto HBO Max, it seems that the future of the classic cartoon could be very bright. Speaking on their latest episode of Fat Man Beyond podcast, co-hosts Mark Bernardin and Kevin Smith brought the rumor to light, with the former firmly labeling it as a rumor. The rumor is that HBO Max is looking at making a Batman the Animated Series sequel, that they want to continue that forward, Bernardin said, as Smith covered what was very clearly a huge smile on his face. I don't know what you're talking about, Smith said with a twinkle in his eye. I'm not involved, but I have too heard this, and I've heard this from very reliable people. When I heard it, I freaked out, and I heard this, and I would say a month before you just said it, that I think it's real. I don't think it's just a rumor. I wouldn't say set your watch to it, but I'd say it's an idea whose time is not only coming, I think it came, and it's smoking a cigarette. I think it's going to happen. How fucking amazing would that be? Because you can literally pick up and just keep going. It's not like we got to explain why everyone's older. The fucking animation, man, you can just go right back to those fucking stories. He continued, that to me is a no-brainer. You've got HBO Max, you've already got the amazing Harley Quinn show. You're printing money if you go back to the bank and do Batman the Animated Series. You can't fuck up the legacy. That's for damn sure. You can't fuck it up because there's no reason to not do it. As long as you've got the key creative components, as long as Bruce Timm's involved, wants to fucking go for it, for heaven's sake. Smith reiterated once more that he's not involved. He's busy working on Netflix's new He-Man animated series, and as such predicted that a revival of the Batman the Animated Series could happen as soon as 2022. No official word about this has been announced by Warner Media, so check back here for more details as we learn them. Honestly, that's a really smart move. I mean, Kevin Conroy's done the voice for Batman the Arkham series, and he still sounds great.
Yeah, and a lot of they would tone it, even though it's HBO Max, they would tone it down to be in the same vein as the 90s cartoon,
which is fine.
Don't expect the Enter the Dragon style. What was the new one with Bruce Lee basically teaming up?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
Son of the Dragon or something
like that. Yeah.
And I mean, those R-rated ones are fun, but they're not. They would be tonally inconsistent. You can bring people back, do it. I doubt we're getting 22 or 65 episode seasons, but if they said, hey, okay,
let's do 12 as like a test run.
Well, let's just say they went, hey, you know what? Screw it. Let's order, because we already have a ton for syndication anyway. They don't need that 65 minimum number anymore. What if they said, we're going to order 50 episodes to be split up over 5 seasons?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I
mean, 10 a year basically. Or what if they said we'll do 10 every 6 months?
Yeah, I'd totally be fine with that, because most of the principal cast is still alive. I know you've got Kevin Conroy, Lauren Lester as Robin. Obviously Tara Strong would
Hamill would do it.
Hamill would come back in a heartbeat. Although that might be a bit of a point. Actually, I don't know.
Nope.
Because
voice acting is different than physical acting.
No. What I mean is, in Batman the Animated Series, they do reference what happened to him in Batman Beyond, because there's a Batman Beyond movie called Return of the Joker.
Yeah, no.
So
they just make him Robo Joker or Joker pulled from time or whatever,
or something.
There's a way to do it.
Like you could just snap your fingers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a possibility. I mean,
or he could just play the trickster.
I think the guy that played Alfred the Butler passed away, though. But whatever,
yeah,
you can recast
he
that.
was Agent too, wasn't he?
I think so. And I think the guy that played Mr. Freeze had passed away, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. I mean, ultimately, most of the principal voice cast is still around. Otherwise, it's a chance to introduce new kind of villains, new designs. I want more Clayface stories.
I would say most of the as long as you can secure Hamill and Conroy, the rest of the cast can be revolving on some of the better voice actors from the movies recently.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't think people would care.
I want Tim Daly back as Superman. He was
just can't cast Kaylee Kuko as Harley Quinn.
No, that is a Tara Strong role as far as I'm concerned.
As my own hate for her as a boring bland actress put aside, her version of the character doesn't match the show.
Exactly. Like, let Harley Quinn the show be its own thing. Batman the Animated Series, that's Tara Strong, and that's the way it should be.
The Harley Quinn from the animated series is a much more tragic, sad, mentally ill character than who she is than the zany, over the top fun character that they're making her out to be now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Kaylee Cuoco could do the mental anguish as well.
Yeah,
and hide it.
exactly. Like, I think that this is an idea that should have happened, but I'm glad if it's going to happen now, especially with Hollywood and all these streaming services looking for exclusive reasons for you to come over. This would draw in a lot of new people, as you kind of pitched. If they said, here's 50 episodes, 5 seasons, but you gotta subscribe, that would draw people in.
Yeah, you gotta subscribe, and then they go, hey, how about this? First episode
Free.
Not just on there. First episode we air on
YouTube,
on the CW.
Yeah, as like a primetime special.
We're gonna hey Flash is coming back, but stay tuned after the Flash or before the Flash or whatever it is for the first 2. Maybe they do 2 episodes, a double parter, like a first episode's a double length, and they go, hey, stay tuned after the Flash for a special preview of what's going to be on HBO Max, and then they show 1 episode there. Yeah, the CW doesn't get bazillion viewers, but that's potentially viewers outside of the realm of what they would normally see, because they could even simulcast it on there and on the Cartoon Network, and be like, hey, first episode, check it out. You want more? Bam, subscribe, get 1 month free or whatever.
Yeah, honestly, it's an idea that should happen. Let's hope. So moving on to...
Sorry. But that being said, don't trust anything Kevin Smith says, because how many times has he lied about getting a project ready to go and he can't do it?
I don't so much say that he's lied, maybe jumping the gun.
Hit
Hollywood works in funny ways.
I'm working with the CBC to make a miniseries about hockey history that's been made. How many times has he said he was doing that and then it was canceled? Like 5 or 6 times. How many times has he said he's getting Clerks 3 done? How many times does he say Mallrats 2 is being made? He says things without knowing that they're real. So again, he may have heard somebody in Warner say, somebody probably when he was working on Supergirl was like, hey, we're working on this, but that doesn't mean anything.
I guess we'll have to wait and see until there's some kind of unofficial
he cries wolf a little too much.
Yeah. So moving on to our next story, this one comes courtesy of Kotaku.com. A sealed box of Pokemon cards has sold for $408,000. As the great Newt Gunray once said, this is getting out of hand. If you don't know who Newt Gunray is, that is one of the Nemoidians from Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That's my own sidebar. And more people realize the value of old Pokemon cards. More and more people are flocking to opportunities to catch. If not them all, then at least once a card worth a ton of money, which probably explains why via Polygon, a recent auction, a sealed box of first edition Pokemon cards from 1999 sold for $408,000. That is a lot of money, but as Heritage Auctions points out in their description of the sale, the box may contain a first edition Charizard, and one of those recently went for $350,000 on its own. If this box contains one of those, then it was a good investment. If it doesn't, well, then you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on Pokemon cards. You'll survive.
You know how many of us use those cards in the spokes of our bike?
I actually have a story about this. Not about using cards as spokes, but a guy that I grew up with and was best friends with up until just college. His name was Ryan. Huge Pokemon fan, like ridiculously huge. And he used to buy Pokemon cards literally by the box. And I remember very distinctly, him having a first edition Charizard. Actually,
the shiny one?
Yes, and he had several of them.
Yeah.
Because he bought so many boxes.
Okay.
And I remember we used to play with them because we used to play the card game together all the time during high school, and we just never thought anything of it. Now, I can't remember if this was his Pokemon cards or his Shadowrun cards. One day, he used to work at a pizza place, and we were leaving the store at 4:00 in the morning because it was a really long night. The bar rush was really, really bad, and we had to clean the store. So we're cleaning the store and we're loading stuff into his car, and he put his card binder on top of the driver's side, and we didn't even think about it, and he drove away. So we lost his entire card binder, which was ridiculously huge and packed with Pokemon and Shadowrun cards right to the brim.
Do you want stupider than that? I at one point was in possession of 2 of those suckers at that time. There was one of them, like I said, ended up being used. You know, when you get the things in the cereal boxes where you stick it on your bike and it would go click, 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 and you could put like cards in there. Yeah. So one of them was chewed up doing that. The other was there was a disagreement at school. A fight was started. Yada yada yada. And I ended up in possession of one of them and a couple other cards from a kid who was sort of known as one of the school bullies. And I forget exactly what transpired to make me do it, but I picked up, I think they were his prize cards that I got, winning them when we were, no keepsies or whatever, right? And turning it towards him and ripping it to about 5 million shreds and walking away.
Oh boy.
Yes, because that made him upset because the kid was an asshole. But yeah, think about all the things we destroyed thinking that they were worth nothing.
Yeah, I remember when Magic the Gathering was still very, very, very early, and I remember getting into it super, super early. I had a Black Lotus at one point, and I don't know what happened to it, but I know that card was worth a lot of money. Whether it's still worth money today, I couldn't tell you. But I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
You know how many cards are probably caught in some people's vents in their houses?
Oh yeah,
like kids, shoved in there. Like one day you're going to find like it's like back in the day when they used to find like Babe Ruth cards and or Gretzky rookie cards, and they'd be stuck in somebody's vent.
Yeah, and it's weird because the collector market is so fickle with these things. I was actually just watching a video on YouTube just before the kind of show started, but it was talking about Nintendo game prices, but it also they made the comparison to Elvis memorabilia. And for a while, Elvis was the new hotness. You could put Elvis' face on like anything and it would sell because it would be collectible. People around our age, because I'm 39, you're what, 32? 30?
I'm turning 34 in a week.
34 in a week. Okay. So we are in that age group where this stuff is nostalgic, where we got Pokemon, Transformers, Star Wars.
People between the ages of, I'd say, 28 and 44 are probably that group.
Yeah. So some of these people have loads of disposable income so they can spend on what they want, whereas older things like hockey cards are not worth as much. They're only really valuable to a very select group of people because that's their thing. Whereas with us, we don't care.
Well, video games, the difference too is if you're collecting games, it's something you can use. Cards and old collectibles from the previous generations are things you look at. That's all they are. They're the equivalent of your grandpa's stamp collection. So, I mean, there are people that collect games just to have them on their shelf, and I never understood that.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Games are meant to be played. If you have a prize, some people think it's a retirement thing. Some people think it's whatever. I think if you're a compulsive collector, it's an illness. It's more like it's the idea of having to possess it. I think it's what.
Yeah, like I don't understand that mentality anymore because I used to be one of those people where I would collect for the sake of collecting, and then I realized this isn't making me happy. This isn't replacing the void I'm trying to fill. And to buy this box of Pokemon cards for $408,000, that's the price of a house for a chance to potentially recoup some of your investment, because odds are most of those cards are not going to be worth anywhere near what you paid for it. You're basically, you just bought a really expensive lottery ticket.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving on to something a little bit interesting, which I think I'm really looking forward to when this movie actually comes out. So according to iHorror.com, the Mortal Kombat film is primarily centered on Scorpion and Sub-Zero. The James Wan produced and Simon McQuid directed upcoming Mortal Kombat film is high on our most anticipated films. We have reported a ton about this one, and overall the consensus is the film will be very loyal to the source material. This extends to the very hard R rating that it has under its belt and its cast of characters. Now we know the film will focus on two huge names in the Mortal Kombat universe. Scorpion and Sub-Zero have long been fan favorites. The very cool ninjas are known for their powers of fire and ice. Last year's animated film Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge focus on the rivalry between the two ninjas. The rivalry went all the way back to the beginning and focus on their intense backstory of revenge. Director McQuaid, I can't pronounce this guy's name, went into details with Entertainment Weekly, said that he will open the film with an established rivalry between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, similar to the story of Scorpion's revenge. Scorpion, I can't pronounce this guy's name, it's Japanese, and Sub-Zero, again, can't pronounce it, will be, again, mortal enemies. Details were dropped over the weekend that pointed to a new character named Cole Young, played by Louis Tang. This character this will be the character that will bring us as an audience into Mortal Kombat, now that much more is known about how Young will connect the Scorpion and Sub-Zero. However, McQuaid told EW that Young will have a blood relation to the past, perhaps means he is related to one of the ninja assassins. Mortal Kombat is set to hit theaters and I think HBO Max on April 16th. Now, I did read a little bit more into this. If I remember correctly, Shao Kahn, the Emperor of Outworld, has sent Sub-Zero to go kill this kid named Cole. Cole is like this washed up MMA fighter, but he has the Mortal Kombat dragon tattooed on him for some reason, or it's like a birthmark or something. And he goes to find the Temple of Earthrealm, which is protected by Lord Raiden. He runs into Kung Lao and Liu Kang. They help train him and work with him, trying to defeat the forces of Outworld. So I'm guessing by this is not the good Sub-Zero.
Is he going to be maybe like Katana's like secret older brother?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I used to be very well steeped into the Mortal Kombat mythology, although MK9 kind of changed everything. They kind of retconned a lot of shit, which was really cool in a lot of ways, how they've changed and updated the story. Actually, if you really want a good primer on Mortal Kombat, there's this wonderful channel on YouTube, and it's called History Behind the Warrior. And they do each Mortal Kombat character, and they go all the way from MK1, if that's where they started, all the way up to the end of Mortal Kombat, 12, I guess? And they kind of talk about where they come from, their history, all their endings, how does it play into the continuity, what is canon, what is not canon, sort of thing like that. Like, I just watched his most recent episode on Sector, who's my favorite cyber ninja. So I'm guessing the Sub-Zero is Bi-Han. Bi-Han is the evil Sub-Zero who eventually becomes Noob Saibot, as I understand it, and so that's how that works out.
Now, do you think maybe this MMA fighter will be Sub-Zero's younger brother?
That would be interesting. That's actually not a terrible angle to take, but why doesn't he recognize him? But no, he's brainwashed by Shao Kahn.
Well, brainwash, or is it a case of taken away so he wouldn't be forced to join the clan?
Or maybe, yeah, or maybe he's someone like Ermac or Rain or something. I don't know. Like there's going to be a twist because it's James Wan. Why wouldn't there be a twist? So either way, this does look pretty cool. I'm a little shocked we haven't seen a trailer just yet, but maybe we'll see it with the Super Bowl. That'd be my guess, because my guess is like Super Bowl is like a few weeks away, if not really, really soon. We're going to see some big movie trailers really soon. But we haven't heard anything been talked about. I mean, as of this episode's record, they dropped Kong versus Godzilla on a Sunday randomly on YouTube. That's a Super Bowl level commercial. And they just, here you go, Merry Sunday, I guess.
I haven't even seen it yet. And
it's really cool.
It hasn't hit the press sites either.
Wow, yeah. I found it because I saw it on Twitter, and then I watched it on my YouTube app.
Usually, for those not in the know, like I have access to press sites. They'll post the stuff at like 3 a.m, and it'll say can't show or talk about till X whenever they release it on YouTube. It's not even there yet.
So
that
I
makes
guess
me
they
think
really believe in it.
Yeah, and it's not like somebody leaked it because it would have been pulled. So
yeah.
It means that I think somebody at the last minute said release it now.
So hopefully it'll be really fantastic. I'm really looking forward to Mortal Kombat. My guess is for Super Bowl trailers, if I had to predict anything right now, we will see the first trailer for Mandalorian, or sorry, maybe something for the book of Fett. We'll see something, or something for one of the new kind of Marvel series. My prediction is we'll see a new Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer, because that got pushed, which we'll talk about that a little bit kind of later on. We'll probably see the first trailer for Venom 2. And we'll see a teaser. I'm trying to think of what else comes out this year. I don't know. Those would be my guesses for right now in terms of big trailers. What about you, Alex?
We'll see. I don't think we'll see. I think for Marvel, it'll be an amalgamation. We'll see a thing showing
the Disney
Loki
Plus map,
and Loki and Falcon Winter Soldier. It'll be a 2-in-1.
Yeah.
I think we'll see DC wise. It's going to be a lot of stuff that's already out. We'll see a little bit more for them. We might see a tease for Bond again, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I think it'll be more video games.
Yeah, I mean that'd be pretty cool.
Don't be surprised if we see Halo.
Yeah, because Microsoft needs a friggin' W right now. All right, so moving on to my next story. This one comes courtesy of Gizmodo.com. Paramount Plus is set to replace CBS All Access in less than 2 months. Viacom CBS announced today, so last week, that it'll debut its new streaming platform, or its new streaming product on March 4th, 2021. Although it will continue to expand into the rest of 2021. Announced in September of last year, Paramount Plus will be the hub for all assets scooped up in the Viacom-CBS merger, which includes BET, CBS, Comedy Central, MTV, and Nickelodeon, and Paramount Pictures, among others, with its own slate of originals as well. Think of it as a super stuffed version of the already great CBS All Access, though in Canada, not really. Among those originals are The Real Criminal Masterminds, a true crime docuseries based on the CBS series, a CIA-focused drama called Lioness, a new MTV Behind the Music series, as well as a 10-episode limited series called The Offer, which will zero in on the making of The Godfather. That sounds pretty cool. All of these will join CBS All Access originals already available on the service, and Viacom CBS said last fall that additional series would be announced in the time leading up to the service's launch. CBS All Access also offers live sports and news coverage as well. Currently, the ad-supported version of CBS All Access costs $6 per month, which is what we pay in Canada approximately, while the ad-free version costs about $10 per month, or $60 or $100 annually, respectively. The company hasn't made any official announcements about whether the new service will keep the current pricing, but the company is expected to reveal more specifics about Paramount Plus during an investors call next month.
How much you want to bet they cancel CBS All Access in Canada and we don't get it, and then the service just gets absorbed into Crave again?
I would be okay with that, honestly, because it's one thing that we pay. I mean, honestly, we pay it because Blair likes Survivor, and she watches a lot of those crime
and
procedural shows,
right? And you guys watch Letterkenny. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like Crave it's a mixed bag. Crave has some wonderful originals and some stuff you don't find anywhere else.
They just got 5.1 audio this year, and they're still stuck in 1080p land. So they're about 6 years behind everybody else.
Yeah, like Crave has the potential to be something really special if they put the right programming onto it. And I think by offering exclusives from CBS All Access, because that's the only place you can watch Discovery in Canada, unless you're watching it live, that's your option for it. Although we don't get CBS All Access shows like The Stand on Crave, which is really curious. And we don't get The Stand in Canada either. In fact, author Stephen King was asking about that on Twitter this week. He's like, you guys don't get this in Canada? And a bunch of my friends were like, yeah, no, guy, we have to go through other sources to see the Stand.
Basically have to pay for it by VPN.
Yeah.
And even then, that's technically gray area.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've been keeping up with the Stand because it's what I do. And I've got opinions on it. I'm sure we'll talk about it maybe on Future Imperfect, maybe on Loose Cannon, which actually that's really a good idea. TV adaptations of Stephen King. put a pin in that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Anyway, but yeah, it's like I want CBS All Access and Paramount Plus by extension to offer me something really awesome, but I want it to be in Canada. Like all these stupid agreements between Rogers and Bell and the other television distributors in Canada, something has got to friggin' change. Because if you want to watch certain shows, you can log into your television provider's website through, in my case, is Rogers, and you can watch certain things. But if you want to watch certain things, you can log into City TV or CTV or Global as long as you have an active television subscription, and you can watch the last couple of weeks of TV, or it'll air the morning after it airs. Like if you want to watch an episode of The Goldbergs or the Colbert Show or Superstore, you can do that, but you can't watch the entire season that way. So I'd be willing to keep Paramount Plus, CBS All Access, whatever, if it offered more substantial content in Canada, because one thing that you turned me on to was through Amazon, you can buy live television channels, and I purchased something called Stacked, which allows me access to live TV, so I can get channels like the Food Network, which I love because I'm a fat person.
It's anything that Global, I think Global's Chorus, right?
Yes.
It's all the Chorus-owned channels.
Yeah.
Whereas Bell and Rogers are like, nope. Now, that being said, Chorus owns like a third of all channels in Canada.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Like, I'm hoping this is successful. I hope people certainly get their money's worth. I hope these new series are great. We're going to be in a big Star Trek drought for a while because Discovery's done. Picard ended last year or this year, whatever. Lower Decks is finished. Strange New Worlds doesn't have any new info on it. The Janeway show we've heard nothing about since last year. So CBS All Access has got to prop themselves up, and they got to prop themselves up damn quick. Because no one's going there to watch reruns of Cheers. I assure you of that. So
they're not like what was it? Peacock that will have. No, they don't have that. Was it Friends or something? One of them Netflix bought like for a crazy amount of money.
I think it was Friends, although The Office left Netflix and now it's on Peacock, but on the last few days it was available. You could buy the entire series for $30. Also, disclosure, I've never seen one episode of The Office. I hear it's okay.
It's way overrated for the amount of views it gets. It's still a funny show. It has some really funny moments. It's a show that's almost better watching in clips on YouTube than it is like it. Some of it holds up. It's worth a watch. Give it like if you like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or any of those types of shows, it's similar to that. But I mean, I think the first few seasons are considered some of the highest selling DVDs of all time.
Although I will say, I just thought of this just now. You know why I know The Office, and not just because of Steve Carell, Rainn Wilson. I forget what his character's name is.
Dwight. Yeah.
Dwight. He plays a wicked Lex Luthor in the DC animated movies.
Yeah, I can see that.
He's a fucking
like there's a lot of. The Office became one of the first shows to really take off as having meme-worthy GIFs on the internet. And like when I was working at Future Shop, it was considered like always on when the first few seasons came out on DVD. It was always on in the break room. But I mean, it's funny, but it's not $500 million for the rights funny that they seem to think it's worth. I mean, then again, people are creatures of habit, and they seem to tend to watch the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah. So moving on to our final story, and he just won't seem to goddamn die. According to Variety.com, No Time to Die release delays yet again. James Bond's latest adventure has hit another speed bump. No Time to Die, the upcoming installment in the British spy series, has been postponed yet again. The movie will now release in theaters on October 8th. It was originally slated to schedule on April 2nd. It's hardly a surprise that the Bond film has been pushed back to the fall. Hollywood has been widely anticipating that No Time to Die would face another delay as the coronavirus cases continue to skyrocket. MGM is rolling out No Time to Die in North America, while Universal has international rights. Since the movie carries a massive price tag of around $200 million, it relies on substantial global ticket sales to turn a profit. That's nearly impossible to achieve at a time when most movie theaters are closed.
I don't think it's going to make its money back even on video anymore. I think the interest in Bond has been waning since Skyfall.
Yeah.
And Daniel Craig is not a good Bond. I'm sorry. He's a great actor. He's not a good Bond. He never was.
I'll say this. He's not a good Bond. He's a good action guy. But he's not.
No,
Bond.
he's a good actor. He's just not a good James Bond.
Yeah, because I loved him in Knives Out.
A good example is like when he first started coming out, my mom was even like, "Oh, he looks like a goon," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" It's like he looks like a henchman. He doesn't look like the suave spy. And it's true. He doesn't have the debonair, like he's supposed to be the super spy. He doesn't have that look. He has the look of the brute.
I don't know. I mean, he was really good in Knives Out, where he had to be very cool and very calm.
No, he can be that, but he doesn't have like
he's not cool.
He doesn't have a look like he can blend in high society.
Okay. Huh.
He doesn't have the classical look for that. And he can do the action. He can do all this stuff great, but he was never believable to me as Bond. He's more Born Ultimatum than he is James Bond.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty fair assessment.
I mean, he also the last few films, you could tell he was not phoning it in, but he was not. His heart wasn't in it. His heart was in getting the green.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell by the look on. You can tell just the feel of the movies felt like they were making it just because they had to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's going to make the $1 billion they thought it was going to make.
So moving on through the article, it does go on to say Thursday's announcement marks the film's third delay in the last 10 months. In March of 2020, No Time to Die became the first tentpole to shift its release amid the pandemic. The latest scheduling shift for No Time to Die may inspire rival studios to delay any movie still set for the first few months of the year. Moments after MGM relocated Bond, Universal announced that the studio's Bob Odenkirk-led action thriller Nobody was moving from February 26th to April 2nd, and Sony redated Peter Rabbit 2, Ghostbusters Afterlife, and Cinderella. Meanwhile, Focus
Wasn't
Features...
Peter Rabbit 2 already out?
I thought it was too, actually.
You know what you know what I think it is?
Mm.
I think a digital copy was leaked online, and I remember reading about that it got out before the theatrical release.
So kind of like an X-Men origin sort of thing?
That also happened. Like if you looked at like media news sites,
mm-hmm.
that happened for the latest Batman animated movie. It was, and the latest Superman one, they were leaked sometime like 2 months beforehand.
Yeah, because like somebody stole a master somewhere.
Either they stole a master, or maybe because they're not press copies, because those usually have like people's names written all over them.
Mm-hmm.
So it means that something screws up. Maybe a country didn't get the memo, or a store didn't get the memo, and then some copies leak out into the wild. I just have this feeling that Peter Rabbit was already in the public's eye already, and if that's the case, they're never going to make their money back.
No. The article also kind of says something interesting here, and I'd love to get your kind of thoughts on this. So meanwhile, sure. Focus Features, the specialty-owned studio by Universal, bumped Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho from April 23rd to October 22nd, and it's been commonly speculated that Universal's Fast and Furious sequel, F9, won't keep its May 28th release date.
That one, you know what? It doesn't depend on the U.S. market.
In my opinion.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
If Europe and Asia is vaccinated, they'll release it on schedule, because those movies make $300 million domestic here and then $1.5 billion worldwide. So they're not dependent on the U.S. market. They're one of they're one of those ones where in China they'll make their budget back twice over in China. They love their car movies.
I liked the first couple of them, but then it just became so ridiculous. Like, it's literally like
that's the fun part.
I don't know. I mean, it's so strange watching them.
They got a tank, yo, bro. They got a tank,
and now they have John Cena and The Rock fighting each other. So that's a thing.
The sixth movie or the seventh one was Jason Statham and
Idris Elba, the cyborg,
and Vin Diesel hitting each other with like sledgehammers, and they weren't dying.
All you need to look at my face right now.
You have to watch. I still haven't seen the fifth one, and that's the one where it all changed.
Yeah, that's the one where they find like a tunnel to Mexico, and it's like 1 million miles long, and they bring back Michelle Rodriguez from the dead.
That's the fourth one.
Oh my god!
Fourth one she dies, and the fifth one is a bank heist or something, and that's where The Rock is chasing them the whole time as the bad guy, and then he joins them as friends later on. I haven't seen that one, but I saw the 6th, 7th, and 8th one in theaters, plus the spin-off movie, which was ridiculous. But what hooked me was The Rock having a full cast for his like side of his body and arm, like full like mummified cast, and then his daughter's there with him, and he gets the call that Dom and all his friends need help, and he goes, sorry girl, daddy's got to go to work. And then he flexes his broken arm, breaks out of the cast like a cartoon. It explodes off of his arm. And then he jumps out of a building and grabs a minigun and starts shooting people.
That seems like the most ridiculous, like something out of like friggin' No More Heroes or something equally as ridiculous.
Look at his face. Daddy's got to go to work. And he just flexes like, and his cast explodes. Instantly healed.
Wow.
And then in the spin-off movie, which is
Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah. In the spin-off movie, he goes with Roman Reigns to defend his people on and they do like Samoan war dances to fight off an army.
Oh, okay. Because that's what you do.
Yes, and all these giant, jacked up, fat, and super strong dudes are terrified of their little tiny mother who might throw her shoe at them. It's literally his like life story.
Wow,
they're worth watching just for the sheer ridiculousness. Man, they have this chase scene on an on an airstrip that if you measured it in real time. Like it takes like 25 minutes for them to get to the end of the airstrip while they're fighting. It's like halfway across Europe if it was real. And then what else is there? They're driving like tanks and crazy like futuristic cars on ice. They drive their cars in a game of chicken against a submarine.
What?
Yes, and there are rumors that the movie after this coming one will be set in space.
Well, I mean, where else do you go?
Time.
After time. I guess
the 11th one will be a time travel one. I guarantee you, and it will be them trying to save Paul Walker. But they'll find some way that they realize that he has to die because they can't really put him in the movies because he's actually dead. But it'll be we got to go back in time to save our family.
And then they'll be like, we can't, paradox. And then Doc Brown shows up. Ridiculous.
Yeah, there'll be some shit. I mean, Kurt Russell's in it. There's all these crazy people. It's hard to explain, except that, yes, Idris Elba was a super soldier in the last one with enhanced genetics and cyborg parts or something. So... yeah.
On that note, we're going to take a break here on This Week in Geek, and we're going to shift things to my review. We're going to take a look at the Aliens board game, another glorious day in the core from Gale Force 9. We will be back right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I've been Mike the Birdman, joined with Alex, producer. It's time to lock and load, Marine, so let's go.
Hey, Ripley, don't worry. Me and my squad of ultimate badasses will protect you. Check it out. Independently targeting particle beam phalanx. Fry half the city with this puppy. We got tactical smart missiles, Phase plasma pulse rifles, RPGs, we got sonic, electronic, ball breakers. We got nukes, we got knives, sharp sticks. You do not want to fuck with me.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to talk to you about something special coming to us from Gale Force 9. We are talking about Aliens, another glorious day in the Corps, and this is a board game that I didn't know whether I'd totally be into or not, which I know sounds weird considering how much I love Aliens. So these complicated board games, usually they're hit or miss with me. I don't know whether I love them or hate them immediately, but because this was based upon the Alien IP and Gale Force 9 has such a really good track record with board games, and we did like the World of Tanks game that we played during the holiday gift guide last year, I decided to reach out and see if we could get a copy of this. So fortunately, we were able to get a copy of this game from them, and my friend Liam, who lives next door to me, was able to help me put this together. So big shout out to him for putting together the miniatures for this game, because I have butterfingers and you don't trust me with knives or sharp sticks, and or super glue for that matter. So he was able to assemble the minis from the Aliens to the Marines, and we got everything ready to go. So Aliens, Another Glorious Day in the Corps is a cooperative board game, and I've heard it described as like a dungeon crawl, but it's you versus the aliens, and you might have a variety of different objectives. You may start with a pistol during one and get better and better gear as things go on. You may be on a mission to rescue Newt. You may be in a simple hive survival, or you may have to accomplish different objectives. I think in the box there's like 9 or 10 missions, and you do get additional ones, I think, when you get the expansions, which we don't have, but I will hopefully get my hands on, because they sound really awesome and do add additional characters like Crow. You get Drake, a Pone, and then in Get Away From Her, You Bitch, you get Bishop, I think. So in the base set, so you get Hicks, Hudson, Vasquez, Gorman, you get, you get Frosty, and I want to say there's a couple more. I'm just trying to remember if there is anybody else. Ripley, of course. And as you take control of these characters, depending on your rank, you can control other grunt characters. Now, if you happen to be playing as Gorman, you can control more grunt characters, so go you. Although, if you are the player character, you get cooler abilities. If you're passive as a grunt, you may or may not get cooler abilities. And a lot of it is risk-reward, where it comes out of the endurance deck, which is basically represents ammo and resources. So if you fire your flamethrower, cool, you're going to do a lot of damage. But every time you do, you could be throwing away some really valuable cards, so you really got to think about that. And once you go through that, it goes into kind of a discard sort of pile, and then if you start exhausting that, bad things start to happen. But yeah, so me and Liam played a couple of the missions, and we probably got a few things wrong here and there. That's one thing I will say about this game. This is not an easy game to learn, but if you're willing to put the time in, it's worth it. Like, the thing that I liked about this game, and it took us a few hours to play through it. I mean, basically, the benchmark that we were using is I put on the Aliens Director's Cut, and then we watched Alien Resurrection back to back to kind of set the tone for this, and we were able to go through a couple of scenarios across the two movies, so that should give you a pretty good idea of kind of playtime. I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure we screwed something up, but we still had a tremendous amount of fun. One of the things that I really have to comment about this particular board game is I've never played a licensed board game that has captured the theme, the tension, and just the atmosphere of this, because me and Liam were like talking to each other across the table thinking, I don't know, man, if we split the squad up, I can go to the computer, search the blips, but if I do, I'm alone. And at one point, I'm searching the computer for Newt, and we have to put down a tunnel token. And a tunnel token popped up right beside my computer, and then I had like 6 aliens pop out of it. And then I got hit with an event card called, I want to say it was called Blinding Rage, where I have to fire every turn or I have to keep discarding cards. I got a lot of dead aliens, but our deck was starting to really hurt by that point. Let's just say Hudson didn't survive too much longer after that. And we even had a suicide moment with Gorman. We were literally surrounded by aliens, and Gorman was kind of cut off, and they were all clustered in this one area. Gorman had a grenade, and then we picked up a card, which allowed him to do kind of a last stand. And, well, that was the solution to our problem, but we lost Gorman. It was just some incredible moments. We also had Ripley and Hicks in a hallway. They were back-to-back against each other, and the aliens were coming in kind of pincer style. It was incredible. Like, I've never had a board game capture my imagination like this. The last time I can even remotely think about this would have been, I think, Last Night on Earth, when I played that at PAX East all the way back in 2010, I think. So this game has hit every note that I wanted it to. Like I said, pretty steep learning curve, but once you get the hang of it, it's worth it. Although keeping track, because you as a player character will have your main character, and then you'll have sort of a NPC under you, you're going to have to keep track of a lot of moving parts. But once you kind of figured out the rhythm, you can do that. Like I said, I only played this with like 2 people, and we had it moving pretty well. Although we had a lot of alien blips on the board by the end of it, and we got swarmed and we did not make it out. So poor little Rebecca Jordan did not survive. However, if you're willing to put the time in to learn this game, you are in for one of the most rewarding board game experiences I think you can have. Like I said, it captures the imagination, the excitement, the action of this. The cards feel authentic to the universe, and I'm really hoping Gale Force 9 will send us the expansions for this, because I would love to try out some of the new rules, which introduce experience, which allows you to have different things. There's even modes in the base game, which is like the Tour of Duty mode, which allows you to keep moving on from mission to mission, which is, I think, a really neat idea. Like, I had so much fun with this, and the Alien IP has been treated tremendously well by companies like Gale Force 9, like Free League Publishing, who does the Aliens RPG, which I've covered extensively on this show. I know there's a new book coming out from them in like a few months for the Aliens Colonial Marines, which is the book I'm the most looking forward to this year. I think it's a great time to be an Aliens fan, and with FX supposedly getting a new Alien television series at some point in the near future, it's a great time to take a trip out to the Outer Veil to be part of the United States Colonial Marines and explore the universe and get a paycheck. So until then, this has been Aliens, another glorious day in the Corps from Gale Force 9, which gets a hearty recommend from us here at This Week in Geek.
All right, sweethearts, you heard the man and you know the drill. Assholes and elbows. Hudson, come here. Come here.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
All right, folks, well, you heard Sergeant Apone, and we are back here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman. I'm joined with my producer and best friend, Alex. Let's get ready to talk about the cool things that happened around the planet that are strange, unusual, and 9 times out of 10 pretty fucked up. But we actually have some good news to share for a change. In fact, most of these are actually pretty interesting in that regard. Okay, so according to NBCLosAngeles.com, a masked Mandalorian has been riding Los Angeles streets, spreading happiness during the pandemic. Those that have spotted him can't wait for him to zoom by again. Los Angeles masked Mandalorian, like the Star Wars character, is on a mission of sorts. But this man-child, in quotes, as he calls himself, is armed with a sense of humor. On his skateboard, he travels at the speed of traffic through LA streets. I'll ride beside traffic with everybody. police officers think it's hysterical. I've been pulled over once. He's like, why do you think you can just go through a red light? And I went and I want space pirate and nothing you can do but laugh. Unlike other Mandalorians, this one hails from Toluca Lake, is revealing his face. Tim Bremer is a stand-up comedian who realized he no longer needs a stage. He is said, you wouldn't believe, like with girls, it's like, look, it's Baby Yoda. Oh my God, Baby Yoda. With guys, like Boba Fett, and kids are like, it's the Mandalorian. This whole thing got started because I'm a big box of stupid. I love making people laugh. And when quarantine hit, they were talking about 2022 and that we wouldn't be able to perform again. Bremer said, and a friend of mine was like, dude, the world is your stage. Go act on it. And Bremer's appeal is picking up steam. You wouldn't believe, like with girls, like I just said his quote there. But for this out-of-work comedian, the act is for himself just as much as his audience. There's no greater feeling in the world. And with some people with depression, a pill can help. With some people, therapy can help. With me, this is my therapy, said Bremer. And when Bremer realized he's also helping spread happiness, as the Mandalorians would say, this is the way. And as long as they're smiling as I zoom by, that's all I care about. And that's the only medicine I really need. So this guy, he zooms around in a set of Beskar armor. So in his silver armor with Baby Yoda put on his chest, like in those little kind of baby carriers. And his like, kind of like Twitter hashtag, and it says like, be happy. And he zooms through traffic at a really good clip. So that's really awesome that he's kind of doing this. And I saw a guy do this years ago, and it was this huge elaborate setup using I think motorized scooters or motorbikes, but they drove through downtown New York traffic on speeder bikes. They had a guy dressed up as Luke and Leia in their Endor gear and a biker scout. And what happened is at the end of one of their skits, they got pulled over by real cops, and Luke and Leia are talking, and the cops are there. Luke and Leia take off on their bikes, and the cops are like, hey, stop. And then the Imperial Stormtrooper's like, well, I gotta go. And he chases after him. The cop didn't ask them to take off their helmets. So they guess they got away with it. But that made me laugh. And I think it's okay to do stuff like this. And actually, there's another friend of mine who's a comedian. His name's Brian Scalaro, who does a lot of like Zoom comedy things. He has like this really awesome kind of Patreon. He just performed in a parking lot of a comedy club. I think he performed in Vegas this past weekend.
Which you know what? It's funny because back in the day, if you're like, he's performing in a parking lot, you'd be like, what a loser. And you're like, no, somebody actually gets to perform?
Well, yeah. I mean, the world has taken on such a different thing. And he did this really cool thing back in December. He hosted his own stand-up special on Zoom. And he sold like tickets to it. And I think it's really, really fantastic to be that innovative and forward thinking, well, if you can't perform in a comedy club, do it yourself. So the fact that comedians and actors are finding ways to keep work, to keep food on the table, to keep the lights on, but also to entertain, inspire, and ultimately make people laugh, I think that's a really positive thing to walk away with. So whether you're cruising around the streets of Los Angeles with with Baby Grogu, or whether you're telling stand-up jokes in a parking lot or in the comedy rooms of Las Vegas, you do what you got to do. So this next story comes to us courtesy of Coast to Coast AM, which used to be hosted by the late, great Art Bell. But cops in England bust a group making late-night visit to Stonehenge. A group of people in England found themselves in hot water with the law when they defied the country's coronavirus lockdown in order to make a late-night visit to Stonehenge. The strange incident reportedly began on Monday evening, for when reasons one can only speculate on, a cadre of 4 couples in London decided to eschew travel restrictions and make the rather lengthy 2-hour drive to the famed monolith. Arriving at around 1:30 a.m. Tuesday morning, their presence at the pagan landmark was understandably not well received, and police were promptly called. According to authorities, the group had no good reason to be at Stonehenge in the middle of the night, which leaves us wondering what possible excuse for their misadventure could have passed muster. In their response to to their ill-advised visit to the historic site. Officers issued a £200 fine to 7 of the people from the impromptu party. The 8th person in the group, an unnamed woman, faces even more legal trouble as apparently tempers flared during the encounter with the cops, and in the chaos, she allegedly hit one of them in the face, causing.
Is this going to be a case of they're like conspiracy theorists and they're thinking as long as they worship these weird pagan gods, they don't have to adhere to law of man?
I don't know. The article goes on to say, causing a cut above the officer's eye, the woman was subsequently arrested for assault. Looking back on the incident, Sergeant Keith Jackson of the Wiltshire Police mused that this was a challenging situation for the attending officer dealing with the obstructive individuals who failed to see the potential danger of their actions. He went on to express hope that the news of the incident will serve as an example that authorities are serious about enforcing lockdown restrictions and presumably dissuade any other foolhardy individuals from visiting Stonehenge in the middle of the night. Now, locally, to kind of piggyback off of off of what kind of you just said, a local church has decided to hold in-person services in their parking lot, but they also said they're going to hold indoor services, but abide by local lockdown guidelines.
No, they're not. They didn't say they're going to abide by it. They said they're going to do it. They're going against what the government says, specifically because they don't get to rule what God's law overrules what man's law is. And they were already going to be hit with a potential $10 million fine, and they're trying to grow. They're trying to gain support of other churches. Very few are supporting it because they're saying you can pray at home. This to me comes across as, we want money. We can't get money from people if they're not coming to church. And if every other church in Canada has found a way to do it with online sermons or over the phone or that
Zoom.
you Zoom, and if it's elderly, you have ways of getting your donations from your parishioners. But
credit cards.
This to me, it's either one of two things. It's a power play because they think that they don't understand that while you're allowed to have freedom of religion in this country, which means you can practice anything you want, it does not let you go against the country's public health or rights mandates.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I agree that you should be able to practice how you want, where you want, but we're in a very unique situation right now, and I'm pretty sure whatever power you believe in.
The only way that church should be allowed to operate like that is if those people aren't allowed to go home or interact with anybody else and they stay in the compound. If
they stayed in their cars, and actually, I've got a solution, and I don't know whether this would work, so kind of hear me out here. Okay, so it's going to be using some old technology that I hope cars still have access to. Drive it, yeah. Have the pastor stand in front of the parishioners on a podium or whatever and broadcast an AM signal into the cars. This way, everybody respects their bubble. If they want to,
but you don't get it. It's not about that. It's about the government can't tell us what to do because God overrules all, and that's the mentality they're going at with this, and that leads down a dangerous, slippery slope. I would also start to question, if that's how your church is run, what other perhaps extreme or supremacist-y kind of things are you pulling in your church? If you're willing to defy this, you think you won't get fined or that you don't have to pay it?
There was another incident that happened at a synagogue in Montreal the other night where a police officer was unfortunately hurt during it because I guess the crowd got really rowdy. So I don't know. I mean, ultimately, this boils down to don't break lockdown protocol.
If 99% of churches and religious, houses of worship of any denomination type, if they can all abide by it,
so can you.
And so can you. You're doing it out of defiance. If you say it's your crazy, your crazy religion beliefs, blah blah blah, tells you can do this, that's fine. Well, my real world laws say that you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And this is not the government telling you can't worship. This is the government saying you can't gather now. And if they're saying that my religion requires that we gather, and then you go, then fine, you can keep breaking the law, but you will be in trouble, and you won't have the public on your side because they are not oppressing your religion. They're doing this specifically with the interest of public health. This is not a, like, especially since like 90% of the people that are making these laws in this country are of some sort of Christian faith. There's plenty of religions all over, and people in government that aren't, but the people that put these laws in place to protect you in this specific case, this isn't a case of like anti-religious laws. That's not what this is. This is public safety.
Exactly. So ultimately, you can pray wherever you want to whoever you want.
Yes.
Just please think of other people. So speaking of other people, this certainly is interesting. So this one comes courtesy of philstarlife.com. Microsoft plans to reincarnate dead people as chatbots. Microsoft has filed a patent on December 1st last year for creating a conversational chatbot of a specific person at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The specific person may correspond to a past or present entity, such as a friend, relative, an acquaintance, a celebrity, a fictional character, a historical figure, or a random entity, etc. The patent stated. To develop the program, Microsoft will use social data such as images, voice data, social media posts, electronic messages, and written letters to build the profile of the person. The system will train the bot to converse and interact according to the person's conversational attributes, such as style, dictation, tone, voice, intent, sequence, and dialogue length and complexity, topic, and consistency. It could even train the bot to sound like a real person. In some aspects, a voice font of the specific person may be generated using recordings and sound data related to the specific person, the patent stated. In addition to that, Microsoft has opened the possibility of creating a 2D or 3D models of the bots using images, depth information, and video data associated with the specific person. Microsoft's chatbot is a true-to-life version of the Black Mirror character Ash, the digitized reincarnation of Martha's deceased boyfriend in the Black Mirror episode Be Right Back. And similar to the reanimated Ash, Microsoft is planning to give the bot the ability to know that he or she is in fact deceased. According to Microsoft, even people who are still alive can request their own versions of chatbots. The specific person may correspond to oneself, e.g. the user training the chatbot, the patent added. Microsoft also noted the person, whether dead or alive, will only be used as a model of the company receives a request from that person on someone else's behalf.
That's
kind of weird.
That's how, okay, because you know how many people are going to have like Lisa Ann porn bot people, like, you know what I mean? It's going to become a porn thing.
There's probably going to be some legal thing where you can't do that, but obviously someone will apply to, I'd like to license this patent to do X, and they will inevitably do that.
You know how many people are going to be, how many deprived, weird, sick people are going to have their computer AI chatbot be their mom?
There was one movie, I can't remember what it was. What was the movie where the person fell in love with the machine? It had Joaquin Phoenix in it.
I think it's called Her.
Yeah, Her. I also saw this.
I think Scarlett Johansson plays his Alexa voice AI robot.
Yeah, the one thing I could see this potentially used for, in a good reason, I could see this potentially being used in therapy, where maybe other things haven't worked.
If they could get a voice, like somebody who's had some sort of traumatic brain injury, maybe where they're disassociating or maybe in a coma or something, then perhaps having your maternal, like your mother or something, or your grandmother's voice constantly talk to you or read to you stories from the internet and stuff, it could be a way to coax them out. I can also see this, it's kind of creepy, but not, for working families who have children, you know, they may have a nanny or something, right? But maybe having the robot voice that sounds like mommy or daddy reading a story before the kid goes to bed.
I think that's a fantastic application of the idea. Or maybe
it's still going to be used as fuckbots, though, I swear to God.
Something, yeah, I mean,
it always ends up being perverted in some form.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how pure the intention, something terrible happens. Like, as you said, it either comes down to it'll be used by the sex industry or it'll be used for the military or something, which is just kind of the way these things go. I mean, I'm hoping this technology can be used for something really good, but I guess time will be the ultimate kind of teller here. I guess we'll find out more about this patent should someone decide to license it and use it for something else.
Yeah, I could see this. What I could see this being very good for, like, because we've had like robotic or voice actors do things like, you remember when before we had Wikipedia, when we had like Encyclopedia, Encarta, and Britannica and all on CD, especially on the old Macs in the mid '90s and early '90s, where you could have learning software like for kids that would be like, here's Albert Einstein talking to you, and it would be a voice actor doing it, digitized on CD-ROM when that was all new. Well, imagine, in, let's say, they record a voice engram essentially of Neil deGrasse Tyson, or they record the voice of, I don't know, somebody who's not just astrophysics, but let's say Margaret Atwood, somebody who's like a famous person. You could have these people that are maybe poets or writers or Bill Nye the Science Guy or something. They could record their voices, and then they could be used for educational software. So where it wouldn't be necessarily a voice actor. It might take away a job from a voice actor, who knows, whatever. But the idea that it's like, oh, I'm on this encyclopedia site learning in our human learning pod in the future, where we're not at school. But okay, well, I want to hear about, Wayne Gretzky. What was hockey like when we could play it with people?
Yeah.
And then you click a button, and it's actually Wayne Gretzky's real voice explaining to you what his life was like.
Yeah, and you could ask the bot questions and it could respond. So yeah, I mean, there's potential for this technology to be used widely in the educational sector. I think it could be used for like therapy, but let's hope it doesn't go down the other path. Speaking of going down the wrong path, this one comes courtesy of 5newsonline.com, which is a CBS affiliate. Oklahoma lawmakers are proposing a bill that would establish a Bigfoot hunting season. A bill was introduced on Oklahoma on Wednesday, January 20th, to establish a Bigfoot hunting season. State Rep Justin Humphrey, who represents Atoka, Bryan, Cocktail, and Pushmahada counties, proposed House Bill 1648 for the first regular session of the 58th Oklahoma legislature on February 1st. The new law would establish a Bigfoot hunting season overseen and regulated by the Oklahoma Wildlife Conservation Commission. Humphrey told the Oklahoma Wildlife Commission that would determine when Bigfoot season would open and determine the cost of a license. It is my goal to try and get the Wildlife Department to maybe support a $25,000 bounty on Bigfoot, and by doing so, we are going to have a lot of people come out and want to participate.
What makes them think Bigfoot's there? Bigfoot's supposed to be
in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, Bigfoot's supposed to be like travels between Washington, Oregon, Colorado, like Alberta and BC. That's where he's supposed to be. What the hell are they thinking? He's not in the Midwest South area.
Yeah, it's weird. So if this bill passed, it would become effective on November 1st, 2021. Now, it's actually funny. I've actually thought about this before, and I've heard this question raised a few times. If you kill a Bigfoot, let's assume for the purpose of the conversation they're real.
An endangered species. You're not allowed to kill them.
Okay, if they are an endangered species, again, presuming for this conversation they are real.
Yes, exactly.
Are you committing murder?
No.
Because is the creature sentient?
Well,
or is it
you could argue that great apes are sentient, but it doesn't mean that it's murder. Murder is only when it's of your same species.
Okay.
So
okay.
Would it be poaching, or would it be like killing a great ape is considered different than killing like a lemur? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like,
I think
while we morally see it as worse, in the law, I don't think it is. It is, though.
I think if they wanted to do a hunting season, and I don't agree with this at all, you can capture, but you cannot kill. Because let's say this is real. Let's say someone gets one and they can tranquilize it. That would be invaluable to the scientific community, because we don't know, is it a creature? Does it have a social habit?
There's no way that Bigfoot exists, simply because There's too many people, too many drones, too many satellites to have not captured it for real.
Well, again, let's say I play the part of the believer here. There's a lot of interesting video I've seen, and some of it can't be explained.
That's nice. Okay,
but we don't know.
And I've I like pineapple on pizza, but not everybody does.
True. I mean, we don't know. I mean, but you do raise a point because of the widely availability of drones, video cameras, urbanization, the environment being polluted.
The Loch Ness Monster is a higher chance of living because I could go down to like the Marianas Trench or something. I have a lot harder time believing that we haven't caught a Yeti or
something. Actually, no. I'm more likely to believe in the Yeti because it lives in the mountains.
Yeah,
Bigfoot in North America, I'm a little more skeptical.
Yeah, Bigfoot here. Even the Northwest Territories, man. There's too much that's been captured on film for us not to have found where it could potentially live.
I mean,
even if you don't see it, there would have to be hunting grounds
or something. Yeah, like you'd have to see something. Now that being said,
whereas the Yeti is what Nepalese or
pretty much Eastern Europe, all the way East Asia.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, isn't it Nepal and like North Taiwan and all that? Isn't it supposed to be like up there, like the Mongolian area and all that? It's in areas where there are yes, there's cameras that go over there all the time, but there are areas that are buried in caves and stuff. So there's a possibility that there might have been,
something,
the equivalent of a basically a snow ape, I guess.
Yeah, like I've seen some weird videos on YouTube, specifically from Eastern Europe and from the Himalayas of stuff. Well, I certainly can't explain that. I don't know what it is.
And those are areas where it's not as hospitable for cameras to be in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with the amount of deforestation we've done here, I'm telling you, Bigfoot ain't in Oklahoma.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, one of the things that I would love to, I'm a big believer in the paranormal and the supernatural and the unusual, but I am also a man of science. We have 4K cameras. We have all this scientific equipment. Why have we not seen it?
The world is blanketed in cameras and satellite equipment. There's no way, Bigfoot would have to exist somewhere in the Yukon or the Northwest Territories. Is the only place that there are. Actually, no, there's not a single part of Canada that hasn't been captured on film.
True. I mean, there are parts that are remarkably isolated.
But there's nowhere that if you didn't comb over all the data that you wouldn't be able to see them. You know what I mean? Like, they're at this point.
Yeah.
Ask me 10 years ago, I would have been like, there's still areas that haven't. But drone technology, man, and satellite technology, we're at a point now where, unless Bigfoot's been driven underground,
or hasn't been hit by like an 18-wheeler on like a highway, or have died of starvation or
basically the deforestation. Like if the original idea was it was like Pacific Northwest, which went up into Alberta and all that, how much of that has been taken over now by industry?
Yeah, like there's so much out there we don't know, but at the same time we're poisoning the planet. If something wonderful and strange does exist, have we killed it and not know?
Well,
who knows?
That's a possibility. Now, I'm not saying Bigfoot never existed. I'm saying I don't think it exists now.
Yeah,
I don't think in the last 30 years that Bigfoot could have existed.
So, who knows? We'll wait and see. If you have a Bigfoot sighting, I'd love to hear it, actually. All right, so our last story comes courtesy of RollingStone.com. Bernie Sanders has turned his inauguration meme into a sweatshirt for charity. All proceeds will go to Meals on Wheels in Vermont. Bernie Sanders' campaign has turned...
He's old enough to use that service.
Bernie Sanders has turned his viral photo of him bundled up at Joe Biden's inauguration into a new sweatshirt, with all proceeds going to charity. The Chairman Sanders crew neck, named to honor Sanders' assumption of the powerful Senate Budget Committee chair now that Democrats control the chamber, is now on sale for $45, with 100% of the proceeds going to Meals on Wheels Vermont. The absurd popularity of the meme, however, seems to have already caused a glut in orders, with a note on the site cautioning, due to overwhelming demand for this item, it it may be a few weeks until you receive your sweatshirt. The photo of Sanders at the inauguration was taken by Brendan Simoski for Getty Images, was probably the most unexpected, memorable image to come out of Biden's inauguration. The photo...
And we all thought it was going to be that there was like riots and all this shooting. It's like, nope, it was Bernie sitting there. And the only really funny part, what makes it funnier, is that he wasn't wearing a hat. Right, because he's balding and he's so cold. But I mean, it makes sense. The guy's like in his 70s. It was, pretty chilly. Mm-hmm. Started to snow while he was there, so he's sitting like normal, and he just wasn't paying attention. The cameras were on him.
Mm-hmm. Where was I? The photo captured Sanders at his normal core best. Crossed legs, crossed arms, big fuzzy mittens over his hands, face properly masked, covering nose, mouth, and chin, yet slightly askew, capping it off with Sanders' gray jacket that was clearly the same one where he was wearing in the "I am once again asking you" meme that emerged during his 2020 presidential bid. If anything, it's just proof that this person truly needs one good coat.
The photo I saw a late night thing saying that one of the, I forget which show it was, they're like, he's a true Democrat in that doesn't have any excess, and they're like, this is a politician who's a lifelong politician that's had the same coat for 50 years. You only need one coat. When he gets up and he just gets outside, puts on his one pair of shoes, his one coat.
The photo of Sanders quickly took off as a meme, with people dropping the seated senator into classic paintings, movie stills, album covers, which you have done, historical photos, and other memes. His pose was...
Some of them are great, dude.
Oh yeah, there's been some really good ones.
The one, like, I've been posting them with friends in different Discord groups and Facebook. Some of my favorites, if I had to pick a couple, one is the gif of 50 Cent from I forget what movie it was, where he's like in his car smiling and drives away, and in the back seat's Bernie. There's one of the other really good ones is, did you see the baby Yoda made up to look like Bernie?
Yeah.
And then I would say third one is somebody finally put Weekend at Bernie's with Bernie on the cover. That was good. But as far as like some of the funniest ones, some people are really creative in where they put them.
There was one I saw. Somebody drew him in a anime style, and did him as Gendo Ikari from Neon Genesis Evangelion, with the big birdie glasses, the big mitts, and he's doing the classic Gendo pose. And I'm thinking,
somebody's putting him in all the Studio Ghibli movies.
Yes, those are so good.
Those are great. And then I saw one where somebody classically painted him into the Last Supper with Jesus. It's just him sitting over, I forget who he was painted in place of, but it's all these, from the Last Supper, where they're all there, posing and all that, and just Bernie staring straight at
Speaking of painting, my sister Katie painted Bernie, and she did a picture. She did 2 pictures so far. She did Bernie outside sitting in the woods with a bunch of birch trees, and it's called Bernie and the Basic Birches. And then her other one was Bernie sitting under the stars. It's called Bernie and Universal Healthcare. And I think she's aiming to sell some of these. So if you want info on that, shoot me a message at feedback at thisweekingeek.net or Mike at thisweekingeek.net, and I'll get you in touch with her.
The Basic Birches, that was good. I like that title.
Yeah, she's going to send me that as a belated Christmas present, so I'm looking forward to putting that on the wall. So yeah, that's pretty much the weird news this week. If you have any good kind of Bernie memes, I want you to tweet them at ThisWeekInGeek.
I love that for once, it's been almost 4 years, at least 4 years, since we've had a political meme that was all in good fun.
Yeah, like it feels weird.
not like either at Trump's expense or like a what the F or like nothing. There's nothing mean spirited about this.
Yeah, it's just Bernie being an old man.
And he's not known to be somebody who laughs a lot, but he was on. Who did he go on? Was it Colbert or somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Or Seth Meyers, maybe. I think it was Seth, and he had him on there. And like when they said, "Have you seen them?" and he smiles and laughs for a second. Yeah, I've seen them. And it's like, you know what? It's funny because even he, like, you figure a lot of politicians would be embarrassed or upset, but what's the first thing he did? Turned it into a charity.
Yeah, like Bernie, in my opinion, has always been a good guy.
He gets blamed for being a lot of smoke and not a lot of fire behind what he does, and I can see why that can be. But if he can turn something as small as, hey, everybody thought it was funny that I sat funny, into a shirt that he's going to raise thousands for that Meals on Wheels program for people that can't get out of their homes.
Yeah, like he's legitimately going to do some good. And if there was a political guy, I would follow him. I genuinely would. So once again, if you want to find out more about these things, Twitter is a wonderful place. Reddit's a good place. But if you want one of my sister's paintings, I posted it on my on my Twitter the other day, which is @BirdmanDodd. I'm sure she'll make one for you. So hopefully she doesn't get overwhelmed with orders, but I think she would love.
What a fun project to do, though. Eh?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the Weird News, and we're going to close things out with yet another fun piece from PDP. This little piece will help you play a little bit longer on your Nintendo Switch. We'll be back right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
I have been looking for quite some time for a decent Joy-Con grip. When the system first came out, you were able to get some third-party ones that would have a battery built in, or maybe flared out the sides a little bit so it was a little more comfortable on your hands, but nothing really stuck out to me. And PDP released a brand new charging grip. They call it their Charging Grip Plus. And when they sent over the latest batch of products for us to check out, this was one of the ones I was most interested in looking at, in that it does allow charging playthrough. So you plug in, it includes a cable, so you can plug it in. It will pass through to the controllers, your Joy-Cons, and it has individual LED lights showing when they're charging and so on. Standard stuff there, but it does have a more premium feel to the actual grips, and it's a little more ergonomic than the one that comes with the system, or even some of the other third-party ones you've seen from Hori and other companies. But the most interesting thing here is it has sort of a latch design that snaps in place on top of the controllers once the Joy-Cons are in place, and extends the L and R buttons, including the LZ and RZ, to have a almost pro controller level of I guess button feel, size, as well as play. As far as you can trigger on them, making the triggers into true triggers, more like what you'd have on the pro controller. And what that does, obviously, is it passes through to a pressure sensitive part on the inside that presses and depresses the buttons on the actual Joy-Cons, but it makes it much more comfortable to use. This is, quite frankly, something that probably should have been the way it was included in the Switch's design initially. Instead, we got, if you're not a kid and you have larger hands, it was a pain in the butt to try to even use Joy-Cons in that mode where they weren't either individually in your hands or in a grip. They were always a pain. I for one, have barely used my Joy-Cons at all, unless I was in portable mode and I had connected to the controller or connected to the Switch unit itself. And even then, I had to get cases and grips for that just to make it comfortable so your hands wouldn't cramp. This is pretty revolutionary in that it's something that should have existed before but didn't, and now it's so much better. It's obviously not going to replace having a full Pro controller. That just seems to be the most comfortable. But as far as if you're wanting to have an extra Pro experience but have all the features of using the Joy-Cons and not having to buy a separate $100 controller, you can get this Joy-Con Charging Grip Plus for a second player, third player, or if you want to take it on the go but you didn't want to take your Pro controller with you, you're able to use this guy. Slide it in place, it clicks in, it's got a good build quality, and just using the triggers alone feels so much better. And I found that my hands weren't cramping nearly as much from the bad ergonomic design of the initial grip that came with the Switch, or just using even other third-party ones. This is probably the most premium feeling one out there. The only thing I could say, if I had to have a gripe, would be, it's a charging grip. It would have been neat if, maybe it cost $10 more or something, if they could have included an extra battery inside of the actual grip itself. Maybe they'll do that in the future so that You can store an extra charge, so you don't have to have it plugged in to charge your controllers. You could have maybe double the battery life or something out of that. That may be something down the line, but it's not really, it's more of a nitpick because this product does exactly what it set out to do. If in the future that would be something maybe to make a more even premium, higher end one, but as it stands, it's probably the best JoyCon grip on the market.
They came to the new frontier to find a new home, a new life, and a new beginning in the new world. However, they didn't expect to find that they weren't alone.
What is that?
Looks like some kind of an egg.
In the new frontier, no one can hear you scream. AVP, Aliens vs. Pioneers, coming soon.
All right, guys. Well, that is the kind of show it has been here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. Hopefully you've had a fantastic time with us here on the show. I know me and Alex have had a rather good time. So as we mentioned off the top of the show, we got a lot of really good things kind of cooking for us, especially with me and stuff like that. Oh, I forgot. I'm probably going back to college again, like full time in a couple of weeks. So that's fun. And I forgot to mention that. But hey, I'll manage or I'll die.
Well, again, it's different when it's you're going for pure arts.
Yeah.
There's not a whole ton of crazy practical stuff that you're going to be overwhelmed with.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm going to be taking creative writing in a more focused form as opposed to the free form courses I've been taking right now, but I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully I'll get that all sorted out this week and hopefully I'll get accepted to the program. Otherwise, I guess I'll try next year.
Well, and if not, you still got other courses you can take individually.
Exactly. So coming up on the site this week, we're hoping to have a Turd or Treasure out at some point. I know Alex is working on that. I'm working on reviews for Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and that's from Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. This book came out a little bit before Christmas or around that time. I just haven't had a chance to kind of dig into it. I have some interviews I'm currently working on. I have an actor from Stargate potentially going to be joining us for an interview. Don't want to say too much more until I totally confirm it. I've also got some more books from DK Publishing I should be taking a look at. Stargate SG-1 TWIG records this week. That episode will probably be out by the weekend. I'm supposed to record something with JT for TWIG Sunday Funnies. I just have to get my books read for that. We're going to be looking back at some fun titles from the year 2020, some stuff that I have never read before. So we'll be focusing on that. I should be recording that, I think, on Friday. And then JT should have it out in fairly short order. We are going to be starting Loose Cannons starting in February, so be on the lookout for those. Me, Alex, and Aaron will be talking about all sorts of things, and as I mentioned during this episode, maybe we'll look at the television adaptation of The Stand versus the ABC original movies from 1994, kind of doing a comparison and contrast to that, and that should be pretty exciting. That'll be once the series concludes in just a couple of weeks. So yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. Anything else, Alex, you want to mention?
This coming week, in about a little over a week, it'll be my birthday. Everybody's been isolating. I may be visiting a family member for that week, but we'll have plenty of stuff on the go anyway. I would say, I'm trying to think of how many. There's a bunch of movie reviews and stuff coming. As far as Loose Cannon goes, I think we've got a couple ideas for the first couple episodes, and then sometime in February, I would assume we would, if we wanted to do the Stephen King one, that would be cool because we could open it up where we could talk about that, but then also about, like you said, some of the adaptations, about how it's been treated traditionally different on television than his movie adaptations have.
Yeah, I mean, they're either really good or they're really not, or they hit the first mark really, really high.
Yeah.
And then it just...
His movies have a tendency, even his books though too, but his movies and television movies have a tendency to have a really good first half and a really poor payoff.
Yeah, so we will be talking about all this and more right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. We once again thank you for your support as we have now been on the air for 14 years. we could not do this without you. So I know next week would technically be our anniversary show. It's 14 years, so who cares other than go us? I'm sure I'll say something in spring.
We can celebrate in March, April when it's been my 4th year.
Yeah. So we'll be looking forward to that.
It's hard to believe that time's flown that fast, eh?
Yeah, it really has. So
like I've technically been on for basically what like just under a third of the time the podcast's been alive, and to me I still feel like I'm the newbie.
Well, you've certainly handled yourself over that time. You've managed to keep the site alive. You run the site, and you've done a fantastic job. So I'm ever thankful. So until next time, folks, we're going to get out of here. So enjoy your week. Be safe. Abide by local health guidelines. Do something wonderful for somebody this week, even if it's so much as saying hi, hello. Maybe check in on a loved one if you want to this week. Just do something nice. That is my request to you guys. Do something nice.
And my request is keep those Bernie memes coming.
Yes, keep them hot and ready. So until next time, for ThisWeekInGeek.net, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike the Birdman saying, be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.